The family court judge stared at me, then at my sister, Jessica, then back at me. You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom, I swear. "Let me get this straight, Miss Peterson," he said, and his voice was low and dangerous, the kind that made you sit up straight. "You're telling this court that the petitioner, your own sister, has been systematically replacing her son's prescribed medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder with Tic-Tacs?" I just looked him dead in the eye, my hands steady on the polished wood of the witness stand. "Yes, Your Honor. The orange ones. And I have the receipts." Jessica let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a scream. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm, but the damage was done. The whole room, filled with the whispers and the rustling of papers just moments before, was now dead silent, staring at the two of us. A monster and the woman who had to expose her. But you know what? It all started 6 months ago with a broken Lego spaceship. Let me back up. My sister, Jessica, and I have always been different. She was the golden child, the prom queen, the one who got married right out of college to a guy with a perfect smile and a solid 401k. I was the quiet one, the bookworm, the one who moved to the city and built a career. We weren't enemies, not really. More like two strangers who happened to share the same parents. Her son, my nephew Leo, is the absolute light of my life. He's 9 years old, with a wild mop of curly brown hair, a galaxy of freckles, and a mind that moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour. A couple of years ago, he was diagnosed with pretty severe ADHD. It was a tough time. He was struggling in school, getting into fights, just constantly frustrated with a world that wouldn't slow down for him. After trying everything, Jessica and her husband, Mark, finally agreed to put him on medication. And let me tell you, it was like a switch flipped. It wasn't like it dulled his personality or turned him into a zombie. It was like it finally gave him the tools to be himself. He could focus. He could finish the insanely complex Lego sets he loved. He started making friends. He was happy. Jessica, though, she was never really on board. She hated the label. She'd post these long, rambling rants on Facebook about Big Pharma and the overdiagnosis of little boys. She was deep into the essential oils, all-natural, organic everything momfluencer world. To her, Leo's diagnosis wasn't a medical reality, it was a personal failure. A stain on her perfect, curated online life. So, fast forward to that Saturday. I was watching Leo while Jessica and Mark were at some weekend getaway for their anniversary. We were having the best day. We built a Lego Star Destroyer that was almost as big as he was. He was so focused, so meticulous, tongue sticking out the side of his mouth as he clicked the little gray bricks into place. It was awesome. Later that evening, as I was tucking him into bed, he said something that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "Auntie," he said, his voice all sleepy. "I like my new medicine." "Oh yeah, buddy? What's new about it?" I asked, smoothing his hair back. "It's not yucky anymore. It tastes like oranges. And Mom says I don't have to take it every day. Only on days I'm extra good." I froze. An orange-flavored, chewable, as-needed ADHD medication? I'm not a doctor, but I've been around Leo enough to know that's not how his prescription worked. His was a daily, extended-release capsule. You don't just stop taking it. My heart started doing this weird, heavy thumping thing in my chest. "When did you start taking this new medicine, sweetie?" "A while ago," he mumbled, already drifting off. "Mom says it's our little secret." A little secret. The next day, I couldn't shake it. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Maybe the doctor did change it. Maybe it was a new formula. So, I did what any normal person would do. I called my sister. I kept my voice light, casual. "Hey Jess, hope you had a great trip. Just a quick question. Leo mentioned his medication changed? Said it tastes like oranges now. Just curious what the new stuff is called." The line went silent for a beat too long. "Why?" Her voice was instantly defensive. Sharp. "Why are you so obsessed with my son's medical history? It's a new chewable version. The doctor recommended it. End of story." "I'm not obsessed," I said, trying to keep my own voice even. He said he only takes it on good days. That doesn't sound right for his." "Oh, so now you're a pediatrician?" she snapped. "You know, for someone who doesn't have kids, You sure have a lot of opinions on how to raise mine. He's my son, and I know what's best for him. I'm handling it. Drop it. And she hung up. I felt sick. It was the way she said it. The immediate, over-the-top anger. It wasn't the reaction of a parent who was confident in their choices. It was the reaction of someone who'd been caught. The next few weeks were a slow-motion nightmare. I started noticing major changes in Leo. When I'd see him at our parents' for Sunday dinner, he was all over the place. He couldn't sit still. He'd get incredibly frustrated over little things. One afternoon, I found him in his room, sobbing, next to the Lego Star Destroyer we'd built. He'd smashed it to pieces. "I can't make my brain be quiet, Auntie," he cried, and it shattered my heart into a million pieces. I tried talking to our mom. "Mom, something is wrong with Leo. And I think Jessica is lying about his medication." My mom just sighed, that long-suffering sigh she always used when she didn't want to deal with something. "Honey, you know how Jessica is. She's a good mother. She's just under a lot of pressure. Don't go starting drama. You'll only make things worse." Starting drama. That's what my concern for my nephew's health was. Drama. The breaking point, the real one, came about a month later. I got a call from an unknown number. It was Leo's teacher. She sounded exhausted and deeply concerned. She told me Leo had had a complete meltdown in class. He'd thrown a textbook, screamed at another student, and then hidden under his desk and refused to come out. She said his behavior had been declining for months, that he'd gone from one of her brightest students to a kid who couldn't focus for more than 30 seconds. "I've tried calling his mother dozens of times," the teacher said, her voice strained. "She never answers. And when she does, she says we're exaggerating. You're on the emergency contact list." I didn't know who else to call. I'm genuinely worried for him. My blood ran cold. I hung up the phone, shaking with a rage so pure and so cold it felt like ice in my veins. This wasn't drama anymore. This was neglect. This was abuse. I drove straight to Jessica's house. Her perfectly landscaped, suburban prison. Mark answered the door. He looked annoyed. "She doesn't want to talk to you," he said, blocking the entrance. "I don't care," I said, pushing past him. "We need to talk about Leo. His school just called me. He's falling apart, Jessica." She was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, probably posting a picture of some chia seed pudding with a caption about #BlessedLife. She didn't even look up. "His school shouldn't be calling you. They should be calling me. I'll handle it." Handle it? How? By ignoring their calls? By letting him suffer so you can pretend you have a normal kid? "What did you do with his medication, Jess?" She finally looked at me. Her face was a mask of cold fury. "I am trying a new, holistic approach. We are weaning him off those dangerous chemicals. It's a process. It has nothing to do with you." "A holistic approach? You call this holistic? He's miserable. He told me his medicine tastes like oranges. What are you giving him?" And that's when Mark stepped in. "That's enough," he said, grabbing my arm. "You're upsetting my wife. You've been a toxic influence for months, undermining her at every turn. You need to leave. Stay away from our son. Stay away from our family." They threw me out. Literally shoved me out the front door and slammed it in my face. I just stood there on her perfect porch, next to a stupid welcome mat that said "Home Sweet Home," and I felt this wave of absolute helplessness wash over me. They had cut me off. The whole family was siding with her. No one would listen. They were all enabling her, letting her slowly destroy this beautiful little boy, all to protect her fragile ego. I sat in my car for an hour, just crying. Crying out of anger, out of frustration, out of terror for Leo. And then, a cold, hard clarity settled over me. They wouldn't listen to me. Fine. But they would have to listen to proof. The next morning, I did something I never in a million years thought I would do. I Googled private investigators in my city. I felt like a lunatic, like someone in a cheap spy movie. I found a firm with good reviews, run by a guy who was an ex-cop. I called him, my voice shaking. I told him everything. I expected him to laugh at me, to tell me it was a family matter. He didn't. He just listened patiently. And when I was done, he said, "Okay, we can help you with that. Our rate is." I didn't even care about the cost. "When can you start?" The next 2 weeks were the most stressful of my life. The PI, a guy named Frank, was incredibly professional. He was discreet. He just gave me quiet, factual updates. Subject picked up prescription for Leo Peterson at CVS on the 1st of the month. As expected, he'd report. Subject then proceeded to Costco. Purchased a 12-pack of orange Tic Tacs. My stomach would clench every time he called. Then, he sent me the email. The subject line was just evidence package. I opened it with trembling hands. It was a link to a password-protected folder. Inside were photos. And a video file. The video was shot with a long-lens camera from across the street, through their kitchen window. It was grainy, but it was unmistakable. It was Jessica. She was standing at her kitchen counter. She had Leo's prescription bottle in one hand and a giant container of orange Tic Tacs in the other. And I watched my own sister, my own flesh and blood, carefully empty the prescribed capsules into the trash, one by one, and then refill the bottle with little orange candies. Her movements were so calm, so methodical, like she was just packing a lunch. I threw up. I just sat on my floor and sobbed, watching the video on a loop. This wasn't a misguided mother trying a holistic approach. This was a calculated, cruel deception. She was poisoning her son with neglect every single day and smiling while she did it. The report also included receipts, pharmacy records, and the Costco receipt for the bulk Tic Tacs. Frank had everything. The next day, I was in a lawyer's office. A tough-as-nails woman who specialized in family law and child advocacy. I showed her the folder. She watched the video, her expression growing harder with every second. When it was over, she looked at me. "We're filing for an emergency guardianship order," she said, her voice all business. "Today." Which brings us back to the courtroom. My lawyer presented it all. The teacher's testimony, the school reports, the PI's report, the receipts, and finally, the video. They played it on a large monitor for the whole court to see. Jessica's face went from smug and confident to pale white. She started shaking her head, whispering, "No, no, no." Mark looked like he was going to be sick. My parents, who Jessica had insisted on being there for moral support, looked absolutely horrified. My mom had her hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with a dawning, terrible understanding. When the video ended, the judge looked at Jessica. His voice was quiet, but it filled the entire room. "Is there anything you'd like to say, Mrs. Peterson?" "It's a misunderstanding," she shrieked, finally finding her voice. "She's always been jealous of me. She faked all of this. She's trying to steal my son." But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable. No one was listening to her anymore. The spell was broken. The judge granted me temporary emergency custody of Leo on the spot. He ordered a full investigation by Child Protective Services into both Jessica and Mark. He set a date for a future hearing and made it clear that Jessica was to have no contact with her son until then. The fallout was apocalyptic. Jessica had a full-blown meltdown right there in the court. Mark just sat there, gray-faced, looking at the monster he'd married and enabled. My parents tried to talk to me afterward, crying, apologizing, saying they never knew, they never imagined. I just walked right past them. Leo lives with me now. The first few weeks were hard. He was confused and angry. Getting him back on his actual medication was a process. But slowly, my nephew is coming back. He's building his Legos again. He's laughing. Last week, his teacher sent me an email with a picture of a spelling test. A big, fat A+ was circled in red at the top. Jessica is facing charges of child endangerment. Mark filed for divorce. My parents are in therapy. Our family is basically a crater. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I could have done things differently. If I could have tried harder to make them listen. But then I look at Leo, sleeping peacefully in the room down the hall, safe and sound, and I know I did the only thing I could. I chose him.